Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of my Blizzard Ice Spikes build. Here we'll be covering some advanced gameplay strategies as well as the Paragon Boards. I will show you the Paragon tree as is and how I developed it during leveling. I do have to say that as fleshed out as my Paragon tree is right now, every point from A to B was always done as a shortcut. So you'll notice that on my first board, I went left as well as right. This left part was never done until I had points spare. However, not really exciting right now. What I will mention is that the path that you take through the Paragon board should primarily, it's a bit of a free form. You should primarily focus on the stats that you need in order to unlock rare nodes. If you hover over a rare node, it'll tell you, for example, that you need 590 intelligence in order to gain another 10% non-physical damage bonus. There's 451 out of 450 willpower here for me. Even though 5 intellect boosts my damage by 1%, I will take willpower if it unlocks something like this. So this really depends, and there's, like I said, there's a bit of free form to your Paragon board. There is, however, some key things to note. Number one, the legendary node Icefall. I can't tell you how many times this node has saved me. Whether it was through my barriers being on cooldown, or especially in the days before Temerity, this also stacks up until the maximum barrier that you can generate for 5 seconds and then gradually depletes. There's pretty much never a shortage of enemies in Diablo 4, so grabbing this ASAP, rush for it, skip everything along the way, grab it, get it, it's too good. Key things to note on the Icefall board, which greatly benefit us as a crowd controller, are these 3 nodes over here, which is why I've rotated it with the quickest way to Icefall, but also these 3 nodes over here. Actually, it's a cluster of 6. However, despite these being 5% cold damage, which everybody loves, especially us, as that's our primary means of damage, these, however, are very special. These are the only nodes on the entire Paragon board that actually give you straight up higher chill application percentage. There is nothing else that does it. Granted, this one gives you 20% cold damage. You're always getting this. You always have the unlock for it because it's always intelligence required. But the most important thing is that you get these nodes if you are feeling in a spot of where you actually have to get more crowd control in to be able to survive. Say, for example, you're doing demon maps with shamans, and you want to freeze a shaman when you notice that they're buffing their friends. It's easier most of the time to just like throw a blizzard rather than pray for your teleport to come up and do a frost nova so that you can watch your ice shards go off. So having that extra chill application will actually freeze that. In combination with Cold Front, the Cold Front passive, and these chill application nodes will make them freeze insanely fast. To your benefit, once they die from the freeze, you'll generate 50% of your maximum HP as a barrier for 5 seconds. And that stays. Like, this is the most powerful node that you're going to get on a survivability level. Like, the barrier regenerates gives you that lucky hit when you have a barrier active. It gives you Cold Front, extra chill when you have a barrier active. And there are many more things like that that you can unlock and find on gear along the way. So until you have any other means of generating a barrier, or even with Temerity, I would still roll this on hardcore because it is a surefire way that you will keep your barrier. Even if you have that moment where you slightly doze off and you're not entirely sure if you pressed all your buttons, yes or no. This happens to people, and that's how a lot of people lose the characters.
Flesh meat!
You know, you get a little tired or whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm not sure. Icefall, just save your ass. Continuing on from that point, it really depends on when and what unique are you going to get. Are you going to get Raiment of the Infinite first? Then Static Surge should be your next board. Raiment of the Infinite sucks in all the enemies around you as you teleport and immediately stuns them, and for every enemy that you stun with Static Surge, generates 10 mana for you. This basically gives you infinite mana. You don't even have to like cast a blizzard, wait for it to apply a freeze to gain your 10 mana back. No, this literally means that you go into a pack from one to the other. You can spam your blizzards. You go out of mana, you see the next pack, teleport in, bam, full mana. It is, even with your other mana generators, especially recommended for hardcore. I opted to, after that point, also invest into the incapacitate nodes, which quite literally just are straight up damage nodes for stunned enemies. But I consider these to be extremely low priority. The highest priority nodes that actually come together with Static Surge are something that you can greatly benefit off. These nodes exist on another board as well, but they give you 12 mana total. That is, or 16 mana even, excuse me. They give you 16 mana total if you go all the way down here. These nodes, you could say they're not super important, but they kind of are. Because of our mana overflow, we, most of the time, are actually in a full mana position. So the more we have of it, the more we can precast before actually having to regenerate our mana. What do I mean by that? I mean quite literally going from one fight to the other. When you see a big pack of elites, sometimes it's just straight up better to like throw 3 or 4 blizzards down. Like it's one of our best DPS increases as our build. If we need to do more damage, if mobs aren't dying during one blizzard, we cast another one. They're not dying during 2, we cast another one. And this is also a big reason for me to use one-handed and cooldown reduction. I get to cast those pretty fast. Add some attack speed if you have some lying around, or maybe you found some on the Paragon board. You're pre-casting those blizzards even faster. And they all stack, and the ice spikes come out, and it's fantastic. So having more maximum mana allows you to pre-cast more blizzards. It's an indirect DPS increase depending on how you go about your business. The other nodes on this board is a lot of filler. Damage to stunned enemies. I consider these very low priority. The lowest priority, if you ever need to unlock anything that is that pertains to your intelligence, your wisdom, or your dexterity, choose those instead. Literally drop the 7.5% to stunned enemies for whatever it is that you need to unlock, especially to activate glyphs. We'll get to glyphs in just a moment. The other board that I connected is the enchantment board. The enchantment board essentially is not like something that we're seeking for the legendary node. However, it has the most powerful non-physical damage nodes on every Paragon board that there is out there. These are basically no-brainers. They're straight-up damage increases. You combine them with the damage to elites, which is something that I feel every class in Diablo 4 always lacks. And there you go. You have, like, you don't have to think much. In fact, looking at it, I've only attached 3 entire boards to my one board. And now I have to be honest with you, I haven't unlocked all my Paragon points because we were in a race. I didn't go and collect all my renown. I'm still on that. But the way this worked out with the maximum damage on non-physical, not to mention, you know, my infinite, quote-unquote, infinite mana with extra magic, extra MP points, our chill application over here, and there is some resistance, like damage over time resistance was a big, actually became a bit of a problem. Poison started hurting very much, even though I pumped my poison resistant. Taking these nodes helped me a lot with those. There are a lot of enemies that explode into several applications of damage over time effects. But like I said, and I feel this is really important to note, I obviously will post links below this so that you can click and you get a good snapshot of the Paragon board that I use at level 100 and the road towards. But it is very important to note these boards, for your progression, are freestyle. But, there is a but. They are only freestyle up until the point that you have activated, in my opinion, the 2 most important glyphs. Actually, there's 3 important glyphs. The 4th one is a freestyler. This glyph, the Adept glyph, increases your blizzard radius by 20%. Incidentally, also increases your firewall radius. May you apply that later in order to get extra critical damage. However, the glyph for Adept is something you immediately slap on as soon as the glyph slot comes up. Unlock it. Enjoy your bigger blizzard casts. I can't tell you how much better it is. It just covers a lot more ground, even though your ice spikes are kind of getting a little bit more spread. It doesn't really matter as long as you rock the Deep Freeze enchant. The second most important glyph, which I actually did not really figure out until a little bit later, is the non-physical damage glyph. preferably, if you are rocking the static Sorc board, you slap it on here because this has the highest density of intelligence nodes. This has 75 intelligence in in the level 15 glyph radius. In fact, I'd go even as far as saying that if you are delving into nightmare dungeons, don't bother leveling up anything but the enchanter glyph. There's not much to say about this glyph. This glyph literally gives me at level 15 on this glyph, on this Paragon board, 75% non-physical damage. I mean, what more is there to say? It gives me some bonus resistances to fire and ice because that's what I have socketed in my enchantment slots. Beyond that, there is one more important glyph. This is the control glyph. The control glyph is the same as the control aspect that we use. It is literally the same as far as I understand it, which means that it benefits, but I believe it double or triple dips on the multiplicative damage, which means that if an enemy is stunned or frozen, which bosses are considered always when staggered, they're considered every crowd control, your damage won't get multiplied by 0.20, it'll get multiplied by 0.40. Our necklace actually, when maxed, is 53%. You do the math. It's a lot of damage. This is basically rather free. In our first slot, it goes in there once you can move out of depth, because it was very hard to find a radius where you didn't have to level your glyphs all the way to 15 to find 5 dexterity. 5 times 5 dexterity, 25. But the beginner board actually has that. It's the easiest way, and honestly, the biggest damage boost you're gonna get when fighting bosses. The other glyph, and this one I feel is kind of freestyle. I use the reinforced glyph because I felt that it actually helped a lot with damage reduction without me having to grab additional nodes. However, I feel that Unleash might be better. Unleash over here, 30% to all magical nodes within range. However, there's a caveat. You need it to be level 15. What Reinforced does right now is basically buff these 2 yellow nodes. However, if you put Unleash here and it's level 15, it will push all these blue nodes, which give you a bit of an increase. I'm actually pretty sure it's going to be important for me for my next push to tier 100 on hardcore. But that is my final build for the Sorcerer. And that is the end of the video for the Paragon overview. I want to thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video if you haven't already. And I'd really like to invite you to my next video, which I'm working on as we speak, which will go in more in depth on the gameplay and the play style of the Blizzard Ice Spikes Sorceress. I also want to give way more detail on how I actually play with my my movement set, but also to teach you how to become fully in control of this build, and by extension, your surroundings. See you in the next video. And by the way, I am pushing for high-level nightmares. We are currently on 57 because of all the extra time spent on the editing, which I love, by the way. Don't get me wrong. However, most of that done is live, and I will record it for YouTube and make a video out of it as well. But you can catch all that on twitch.tv/7sins. Thank you for watching once again, and see you in the next one.